Hey guys, here's my video on painting wheels. There's a lot of videos out there on YouTube already, but they just show you painting the faces of them, and there's a lot more involved into doing that. So here's my video on how to do it. In this video, I've already done a coat of color on the wheels and underneath the color sealer. In the process of doing that, I noticed a couple pinholes, so I used some Dolphin 1K putty to seal them up before I apply the next level of color. Here I'm just wiping them down, getting everything nice and clean. I like to use spray weight glass cleaner to prep the surface. These wheels should be easier than others because there's only 5 spokes and they're 20 inches in diameter, so there's some working room. I'm using a Iwata LPH80 for the color, the base, and the clear because it's a minigun. It sprays at low pressure, so there's not as much overspray, and it gives an excellent atomization and finish. I have desiccant after the hose just in case. Here I'm testing my pattern, adjusting for the fan size. I'm spraying it medium wet. Little leak, but I'm still going to send it. I'm starting off just touching up the spots that I had to do a little bit of wet sanding to smooth out that dark shadow gray. So all I'm doing here is doing a little bit of touch up. I went to a Home Depot and I got a Lazy Susan. That's what's underneath the wheel, allowing it to spin freely. And I have a block of wood mounted to that, sitting on the bottom side of the wheel. Just doing light coverage coats. It already has pretty good coverage, so I'm just, like I said, touching up spots that needed a little bit more. After I'd given about 15-20 minutes for the base to flash off, here's the tricky part of flipping it so that the face is down. You want to make sure it's dry so that you don't get any residual scratches or marks from what you're flipping it onto, the face. If the base is all dry, it should be fine. And as you can see, the inner barrel and the inner spokes have not been painted before, so now I'm just going to be going ahead and masking off that hub where it connects to the car. You want to make sure that you do a good job taping this up because you don't want any paint on there. You want to have a very good contact metal on metal for the wheel hub to the actual wheel on the vehicle, or else you can have some vibration issues, the lug nuts won't go on right, etc., etc. So all I'm doing is I'm putting some tape on there with good adhesion to block off the metal. Then I'm going to follow it with a razor blade to cut around that circle. And you want to use an X-Acto knife to get as crisp a cut as you can. So now that all the surface area has been masked off, I'm just using an X-Acto blade to go along the edge of the mounting surface, and as I'm moving the wheel, since the blade is so sharp, it's cutting through the tape. And the last piece is you want to leave a little edge to fold up so you can easily remove it after you've sprayed the last coat of clear. So I just mixed up a little bit of sealer, and I added some black tinter to get it gray, closer to the color of the dark shadow gray that I'll be using as the base coat. I dialed in the fan a little bit, no reason to have a lot of overspray. And here I'm just going to be spraying the inner barrel spokes and trying not to get too much overspray everywhere else. I've got about 25 psi in there. The fluid's about 2 turns out. I'm using the Aeropro A610. And I'm just trying to get some coverage so that when I put my dark shadow gray on, it sticks well. And you can see that circle that I masked off giving good hiding, which I'll be pulling off later on. Here you can see I'm putting the color on, just trying to get coverage on the inner barrel and the lip. You know, most people aren't going to notice this, so if your finish and it isn't perfect, it's okay. Just trying to get that same color that we're seeing on the outside face on the inner part of the barrel as well. Now that the base is on, I like to take a water bottle and spray everywhere so that any dust particles will be on the ground and not lifted into the air as I spray my clear, because once you put the clear on, there's no turning back. Since I wiped everything down, it should help minimize the dust. I like using a tack rag also to make sure any dust that's on the wheel gets picked up before locking it in with the clear. quick hand mix of the clear. I like using SMR42, which with the medium system. I'm spraying about 80-85 degrees. I don't add any reducer or anything here. I like the Iwata LPH80 because it atomizes really well, and it gives a nice minimal amount of overspray, and it can spray at lower PSI. So I think I have this one set around 18 PSI. Always test your spray before you go right in the panel in case something funky happens, which does quite a bit. You can remove the part of the bladder by spraying upside down, and it will suck the air cavity up so that you can actually spray upside down. That's what I was doing there, removing some of that extra air. I start spraying on the inner part, and when I'm done, I remove the masking and flip it over so I can finish with the face. And that's how I'm able to spray all the clear in one go. you're tight on space like I am, this rotating assembly is really useful. Otherwise you're walking around a lot more of the wheel and risk knocking up dust in the air. And I really like this spinning system because it makes things very easy and robot-like to spin in it a little bit. While I had the center caps out, I decided to add a little bit more clear to them. That's just a piece of PVC with mesh glued on top of it, and you're able to rotate that one as well. Now that I've done my 2 coats of clear, it's time to flip them. I've given about 10 minutes dry time between the first and second coat, and another 10 minutes for it to dry up before I'm removing the masking on the bottom part that attaches to the hub and flipping it over here. If you have any defects on the part of the barrel that's hidden by the wheel, it's no big deal. But you don't want to end up touching the clear if you can help it. So when I'm spraying these wheels, I'm going for the inner barrel first and hitting the sides with a light medium coat. I don't want the clear to run, so I'm trying to be careful not to put it on too thick, especially the first coat. It's just a tack coat so that the next level of clear can lay on a little bit better. You can really see with this LPH80 there's not a huge clear cloud of fumes and paint, and it's pretty quickly getting sucked into the exhaust. After I do the inner barrel, I try to get the inner spokes of the wheel, once again with a light coat, and this is why it's so important to have this rotating assembly, or else you'd be moving around a lot and possibly missing one of those spokes. Just trying to keep it moving and not take too long so that you can go back over and hit it keep the wet edge going. Nothing worse than having a dry and then a wet edge. Trying to keep that clear seamless. up with the lip. Hitting that also, you're not going to see most of that outer barrel, but you will see that lip, so you want to get that wet as well. This is my last coat of clear. I bumped up the pressure a little bit to get it to wet out. I have the fan wide open, and you can see it's wide open there, and the fluid maybe a half turn to 1 turn out from full. Like I said before, I don't want it to run. Same technique as before, starting from the inner barrel, moving out. Here I was just focusing on trying to get the spot that I missed underneath the spokes, because when I was looking at it from the angle, it looked a little bit dry. And I think that this video cuts off because the battery about died, and so it may stop suddenly, but yes, I did get a full 2 coats on this whole thing. So here's where the battery died, and here's the final result after 2 coats. This is about 10 minutes after flash, and I let it sit overnight. It came out pretty decent, glossy.